Hey everyone, so I wanted to go ahead and make a part 2 of this video. The first part of the video kind of covered weeks 33 and 34. This is going to cover 35 and 36 just because it was getting super long and I wanted you guys to be able to have a break in between. So thank you for sticking in there with me, and thank you for understanding that I'm a little bit long-winded. And where I left off in my last video was that I was leaving my midwife/OB practice, and I had gotten an appointment with a VBAC friendly doctor at a completely different hospital, completely different doctor. I think I set the appointment up on either Wednesday or Thursday. On Friday was when my cousin's accident occurred, and so at that point everything was just like, wasn't even thinking about pregnancy, wasn't even concerned about it. All of my heart and soul, everything was just broken into pieces, and everything's really a blur. I will make like a separate video talking about how we're coping with that. I don't want to get into it too much because there is so much pregnancy stuff to cover, but I will let you guys know how we're doing as far as coping with that in another video. So that was Friday. On Monday we met the doctor, the new doctor, and I was really impressed with just his whole demeanor. He came into the room, introduced himself, we talked for a couple minutes about my situation. He let me know that he is VBAC supportive, but he had to list all of the risks that were involved, and he did. But the thing I liked about how he went about presenting the risks was that he says, this is what I'm supposed to say. This is what most doctors will tell you. However, according to the studies and according to the American College of Gynecology, this is what they say, this is what they recommend, and this is how I practice. And so just his whole demeanor and his whole attitude towards approaching me, I was really impressed with. He also said that in the past week he had done 6 or 7. He had attended 6 or 7 VBACs, and so that was really encouraging to me, just to know that when people hear about him and they hear about his reputation, they come flocking towards him. And so so that was really great to hear. And he laid everything out for me. He said, I'm not gonna guarantee you a VBAC, but I'm gonna tell you that, that's what I aim for. That's my goal, is to get you to have a successful vaginal delivery. So I thought that was really awesome, and it was just nice to have a doctor mirror kind of my thoughts on the subject. So that was really nice. I asked him how far along he would let me go before saying, okay, now we really need to talk about a C-section. And he said, as long as the baby is a good size and everything is going well, he's like, I would hope to see that you are making some kind of progress by the time you're 40 weeks. And he said, and then we can kind of see how far progressed you are. But I am willing to do membrane sweeps, and I am willing to put you on, a certain amount of Pitocin that I feel comfortable with. And I don't know how I feel about Pitocin. I know that it does definitely increase your risk, I think up to 4%. And, I definitely don't want any added risk. And to be honest with you, I would rather just go in for like a scheduled C-section than be put on Pitocin and then have to have an emergency C-section because of a rupture or something like that. That's something that that I have to weigh my options, and hopefully I don't have to even think about that. Hopefully she comes, in the next week and a half or 2 weeks. That would be awesome. And hopefully I won't even have to think about that. But just the fact that he was willing to do, whatever he felt was safe, in his medical experience to get me to have that vaginal birth was really nice. So he said, as far as like the baby being a good size, I asked him what that meant, and he said, how big was your last baby? And I told him, she was 4 pounds 7 ounces when she was born. He's like, okay. He's like, the mom is the only one that can tell me how big the baby is. He's like, I don't go by ultrasounds. Ultrasounds are not accurate. So really you're the only one that can tell me how big your baby is, and the only experience you've had is up to about 5 pounds. So he's like, we're just gonna have to go and go do the best we can with estimations, but it didn't seem like he put a lot of stock into, okay, that excuse, oh, the baby's too big. So that was nice. I asked him how he felt about the patient eating during labor, and he very amusingly said, as long as I can eat, you can eat. So he's like, if I'm down there and you're pushing the baby out, if I can't eat, you can't eat. But he said for the most part, he's like, I want you to stay fueled up. So if you feel comfortable eating and that's what you want to do, I want you to be able to do that. So I thought that was really, really awesome, because that was not even an option with my first OB or my midwife. So that was really cool that he was flexible in that way. I asked him about intermittent monitoring, again, something that I didn't think was even negotiable, and he said, you know, he was like, whenever you come in, we're going to want to have you on the monitor for a little while. He said, if we establish that everything's going well, you want to get up and walk, you know, you can have an hour or so off the monitor and then, you know, get back on. He's like, as long as everything is going well and there's no reason to be alarmed or anything like that, I have no problem with intermittent monitoring. But he said, again, I'm not going to promise you, you know, a bunch of time off of the monitor. He said, we're just going to have to see how it goes. But he said, for the most part, I don't see a problem with letting you get off of it every once in a while. So again, I was shocked by that. And I also thought that that could mean that I might be able to stand in the shower during labor. And I didn't remember to ask him specifically about standing in the water and doing, you know, water labor, but I know that they don't have birthing tubs, unfortunately, at this hospital. But I am going to ask him at my next appointment how he feels about that. Okay, another thing that he did was the Group B strep test. And somebody should have warned me what that entailed, because I didn't get to that point with Sadie. I never had the Group B strep test with Sadie. And so they, you know, he went down there and I thought it was just a vaginal swab, and it was more than that. He went and did, you know, vaginally, and then he went back further and did the other orifice, and I was very surprised and I wasn't ready for that. Luckily it was quick and I didn't have much time to react, but that test did come back and it was negative, thankfully. Okay. Oh, and I also wanted to mention that this doctor, we really like to involve Sadie in the whole pregnancy. She's come with me to most of my appointments. She's been there throughout the whole thing. We love to let her hear the heartbeat whenever possible. We just want her to be really involved, because, you know, everybody's talking about the baby right now. Everybody wants to know about the baby. We're talking about the baby. We're buying all these things for the baby, and we don't want her to feel left out. So she comes to most of the doctor's appointments and she really loves to hear the heartbeat. And so the doctor, you know, pulled up the heartbeat on the doctor pulled up the heartbeat on the Doppler. Everything was perfect. And then he went right over to Sadie and he said, do you want to hear your heartbeat? And she said, you know, yes. And he let her hear her little heartbeat on the Doppler. That was really cool. So I really appreciated that he had gotten her involved. That was really sweet. So that was on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we had a cross dedication where Katie had gotten hit, and so we were all kind of like standing in an intersection. It had been blocked off by the cops. We were all standing in this intersection, and they were nailing the cross into the ground, and they were doing their little spiel. And we had, you know, everybody had kind of parked around. After that dedication, we headed back to my aunt's house, and I just was sitting on one of their recliners, and all of a sudden I had a contraction. Like I thought that I've been feeling Braxton Hicks contractions just once in a great while, not every day, just, you know, here and there. But I was sitting there in the recliner, and it was like all of a sudden my stomach went, and it was like, oh my, it was almost like it just had hugged the baby, and then the baby was still moving, so it was like really weird feeling, almost painful. And so then I was like, okay, that's my first contraction that I've ever felt. And I think the reason was because when we were at the cross dedication, it was standing, you know, we could only stand. There was no chairs or anything in the middle of an intersection. So I had been standing for so long and, you know, walking and things like that. So when we got back to the house and things had kind of settled down, you know, my body was kind of still adjusting. So I had my first, like, what I would consider a definite contraction on that night. But I had, I think, a couple of them, and then they, like, got less intense and kind of just weaker. I still had some tightening, things like that, and ever since that day I felt tightening here and there. I think again just Braxton Hicks, or maybe just intermittent contractions. I don't know whether they're real contractions or Braxton Hicks contractions. I have no way of knowing, but I know that I'm not in labor or anything like that. I might be in early labor, but I know I'm not in labor. So but yeah, I had my first contraction, so that was pretty cool. I'd never gotten to feel that before.